Hey, Happy New Year. Glad to be with you here on the show. Thanks for tuning in, whether you're on the podcast or on my YouTube channel. Good to see you and good to be with you today. As we're here in the new year, I wanted to chime in on a topic that is going to be pretty big for me this year. It's a theme, and I hopefully it's not just for this year, but it's for the foreseeable future, right? I'm hoping that it becomes something that I continue to live by, and I wanna share this with you, and it's this thought of just running your own race. I spent a couple of weeks taking some time off during the holidays. 2023 was an insanely busy year, all my fault. A lot of thoughts behind that. But I just overworked. I just made myself overly busy for whatever reason. Burned myself out. Finished all the projects. Who's been there, and I got it done, and then made some vows for this year. And um, I think this is a really important thing because if you've ever found yourself scrolling through social media, looking at someone's vacation photos, their job promotion, their business wins, who they're hanging out with, all the fun things that they're doing, like the feeling, right? You feel like you're not doing enough, or you're comparing your pace of life to not just your friends or your family. Like, okay, that I get because you have to see them once in a while, right? Like, it's that relative that you see over the holidays. Like, why couldn't I be like him or her? Right? They're just blazing fast, successful, or whatever. But then we have social media and we're comparing ourselves to complete strangers. We feel like we're falling behind. We've all been there. We all know the feeling. About 2 months ago, I noticed that this was something recurring, and I tend to feel like I'm pretty strong-minded, like, I am focused on what I'm focused on. I don't pay attention too much to what other people are doing. But, this stuff wears you down. It really, if you spend a lot of time on social and you're kinda looking at, you know, what's posted there, it can wear you down, and I started to notice this about myself. Like, I'd be scrolling through social media or just get on any particular platform, especially Instagram. There's something about that platform. I just wanted to change my relationship with it. And I was like, why am I'm seeing these posts, they're great. There's a lot of value there for some of these people that I follow. And I'm like, oh, I should create content like this, or I should do a video like that. I should have edits like this. And I just started to notice that I kept shoulding and coulding and um like to death. Like, I just kept saying that to myself, and it was a big distraction because then I lost sight of the content and the value that was being added, and I just looked at it, I'm like, "I should be doing something like this. I should be doing something like that. Why didn't I do my book launch like this guy? Why don't I meditate like that guy? Why don't I go travel it like this girl?" And all of this just kinda creeps in. I just, like, got really sick of it, and, it was probably a slow buildup, but, uh, I just decided because it hit me like this, because marketing background and all that. I said to myself, every time I log into Instagram, it's like voluntarily signing up to see advertisements of everyone else's life. I'll say that again. Let that sink in. Like, you open a social media app and it's like you voluntarily choosing to watch a bunch of commercials of other people's lives, what they're eating, where they're traveling, who they're traveling with, who they're with, what they're doing, what they're doing in their business, what they're reading, all you just name it. What they're angry about, what they're happy about, you name it. But at the end of the day, it's just like a slot machine of ads for other people's lives, and it's so easy to lose sight of your life. And I started to notice that was happening even with people I cared about. Even with people I cared about. And so for my own sanity, I actually wiped my entire Instagram account in late November and had 0 posts on it, and I didn't log in at all, and it was so freeing. I just got all the clutter out of my mind. A couple of weeks later, I did a launch for my business. We had a program that I was promoting, and so I was running ads on Instagram. Go figure, right? Like, the very social media network that I don't want to engage in, I'm running ads on because everyone else is on there. And so I repopulated some old posts onto my feed, but I was surprised at how much emotional bandwidth I had after turning off the noise. And I just started unfollowing tons of people, like people who I don't interact with online, people who don't interact with me. And I was just following them for the sake of following them. And I think I went from something like 800, 900 people I was following down to less than 200. And it made no difference in my life, right? It just made no difference. Now, if you use Instagram at all for work or business or just for pleasure, I'm not slamming the channel. I'm just saying that like this whole comparison thing, it sneaks up on us. And more than ever, we have these phones, we have these devices that make it so susceptible to this. Um, I think about Theodore Roosevelt, who's widely attributed for saying comparison is a thief of joy, right? And like I've always chewed on that, and I thought that it was something that I was okay with, but I just started to notice like this was seeping back in. So I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to run my own race. And I don't know if that's because I'm getting older, maybe hopefully a little wiser, more seasoned, more experienced, not just in business and that world of professional work, but my life. Um, I was reflecting during that time. I did a little bit of goal setting and journaling and just meditating and just hanging out and doing nothing. And it kind of dawned on me that like, wow, I think I'm sort of a late bloomer in life. I did a lot of things late. I'll maybe share more in depth on a future episode about this stuff. But I did a lot of things late. And what I noticed is that, oh gosh, if only I did that earlier. Maybe I got serious about my health earlier, or my finances earlier, about my business earlier, or you know, I missed the window to having kids, or you name it, right? I should have gone to that place, or I should have made an investment in, you name it, earlier. Everything's like I shoulda done this earlier. Um, and of recent in recent times, I've been talking with several friends about different personality tests, rubrics, human design. I've sort of dabbled in, and my friend Lisa McGuire, she did kind of an analysis for me on that, as well as Nick Cavuto and Ellen Wong. I want to give all three of them shout outs. They've kind of been my guides when it comes to human design. And Lisa in particular always says to me, "Hey, as soon as you notice yourself shoulding and coulding, you're out of your zone." Right? And I was like, "Oh, that's so true." And it all kind of came to a head at the latter part of the year. And so, um, this idea of running a race is a really powerful metaphor. Like, who says that you have to do something or a certain thing or anything by your 30s or your 40s or your 50s, right? Focusing on my own goals and my own progress. Uh, I know it's a cliche, but I don't think people really care what I'm doing day to day. Like, they just don't. I mean, maybe my mom, my sister, right? But it's it's amazing how easy we allow ourselves to get sidetracked by what other people are doing, right? And life is not a competition with others, but a personal journey, right? It's your own success. I'll say it like this, especially for those of you who may be in business. I run a business. I run multiple businesses, and uh, businesses are there are a lot of businesses that are similar to other businesses, especially in the same industry. And so I would look at people who are in the same industry that I'm in. I would consider them like in the thought leadership space. They're coaching, they're teaching, they're advising, they're creating content that educates and informs, and then they sell things, right? And there's a ton of different ways to do that. None of them are really, really the same. There are similarities and principles, but they're not the same. And I can go on on social media and see some of these people out there, and I said, why am I not like such and such person or that guy or that gal? And oh my gosh, look at, I'm now getting into YouTube. I'm like, oh my gosh, look at this. All these teenagers and 20 somethings just killing it on YouTube. I should have gone on that platform when I was told by a friend of mine 7 years ago. I should have done it. Right. And you're cutting and shooting yourself to death until I really thought about this. And I started to fill in some names, right? Just again, nothing personal against these folks. They're just running their own race. They don't care what race I'm running, right? And why am I caring about theirs? And I sat there and I started to think, you know what? Like I do a lot of similar things and teach a lot of similar content to that gal. And then I look a little bit at what her business is about, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you know what? Actually, I think that would drive me crazy if I if I ran a business like that, I don't want 15 full-time employees. And yeah, they might be making millions of dollars, but I don't, they're teaching content. It's the same stuff over and over again, which makes a lot of sense. I'm not slamming that. But I find that I get bored of talking about a certain topic after a little while. I like to move around. I'm more flexible. I like to do that. I like to bounce around. And so if you chained me to a niche and a topic year after year after year, decade after decade, I might not be very happy. Right. And so it's amazing how I'll use myself as an analogy. I can compare my results to that person, and yet the manner by which they attain those results is not in any way, shape, or form similar to what I do. That's an unfair comparison, isn't it? It's compare apples to oranges, right? How they got to that level of success is so different than what I do. How can I compare my results in the same way? Right? We have a different type of business. We do different things. And so I've just, this might sound crazy, just unfollow a lot of these people, not because they're bad, not because they're doing something inherently wrong, but I just need time to focus. I need time to cocoon. I need time to burrito, right? Like literally burrito, right? Like a blanket in a blanket, to kind of distract myself, untether myself, right? Unhurry myself, right? So that's probably step one, right? Like just shutting off the valve, like turning off the faucet to all the noise and the distractions. Um, as I kind of shut off social media, I've been back on it a little bit here and there, like post once a week or something like that. And I don't have any rhyme or reason to that right now. Um, my business is built a certain way. So I decided, turn off the faucet on all the noise and fill it with something different. A very practical thing I did was just get off my phone, like just change the vehicle and the device by which these distractions are coming. And I found my old Amazon Kindle. I think I bought this thing like 6, 7 years ago, and I didn't really use it. To be truthful, I didn't like Amazon's user interface on their Kindle, and I thought it was really slow. I was like, it's so much better on an iPhone. So I'd use that app, but then the Kindle app on the iPhone is kind of crappy. And so I didn't like using it. And so then for a number of years, I bought all of my books on iBooks, which is, the Apple platform. And then that platform got worse. And so I went back to Kindle and they made the Kindle app better on the iPhone. And then I just decided a couple of weeks ago, let me charge this sucker up again. I haven't turned it on for years. It's still very slow, but there's no internet on it. I can't get distracted. And I have finished reading so many books. And like, I'm just talking about 3 weeks. I've finished probably 2 or 3 books in the same time that I would have spent scrolling through Instagram. I didn't dedicate any more time to reading. I didn't have it on my phone. I didn't have any reason to check social media. And I would just pick up my Kindle and just read a page or two at a time. And next thing you know, I finished a couple books and I'm like, wow, this is an incredible amount of time that I was dumping in to social media, to consume it. Now, for my particular business, at least right now, it doesn't matter that I create content on social media or not either. And so just deleting it stopped me from wasting time creating content for social media. So I doubled down on writing and I doubled down on emailing my list and banking some video content and podcast content and revamping a lot, like hosting a webinar and doing a program launch and all this other stuff that was actually really productive and conducive to growth for me and for my business. I finished a ton of client projects, and it's just because I squeezed or I reclaimed a ton of time that was being squeezed because of these distractions, right? It's so easy to fall into the comparison trap in our world, right? I heard it once said, don't compare your highlight reel, right? We compare our backstage to someone else's highlight reel. And at the end of the day and the end of my days, all I have to look back on is my own life, right? And I want to say that I really lived it in a way that was conducive to me, the way I was wired, the people I wanted to work with, the things I wanted to do, and that I was true to myself, right? A big part of this is also acceptance. This is a little bit less about work and business, but more about life. But I have been going through a journey lately of really learning to love my own journey and accept it. Recently, I had a conversation while I was traveling with one of my buddies, Travis Chappell, and I haven't aired this interview yet. I don't know when and where I'll do it. It was an insightful convo with Travis. We had some similar backgrounds growing up, and he's much younger than I am, right? He's a young buck still. And we were talking a little bit about his childhood and how like he was raised, and he just kind of shunned all that, right? And I asked him, "Hey, man, do you still love and accept 13-year-old, 15-year-old, 18-year-old Travis?" And he paused. It was like, wow. And he was like, "I'm not sure I can say I do. I think I accept it. Like, I can't change my past, but it's hard to say that I love that guy." And I've been in this reflective mode, right? I mean, I'm always pretty self-reflective and introspective, but of late, it's really been about accepting myself, self-acceptance. The journey that I went on. I did spend a little bit of time. I found a bunch of old journals from when I was like in my 20s. And I read through those journals and I was like, wow, this guy is so different than who I am today. Um, and I noticed my first reaction was like, what a loser. What a dork. Like, oh my gosh, this is how he's not a cool 20 something. I don't think I would hang out with this guy today. Right. And then I noticed that. I noticed what I was saying. And I wonder if you ever pick up on how you talk about yourself to yourself. Right. And I know the first thing I noticed was all the things that I didn't like about him based on who I am today. And I noticed that and I was like, you know what? Let me try to change the narrative on this. Like, let me find the good things. This guy's earnest. He's sincere. He's really trying to live out what he believes, right? He really earnestly believes what he believes. Hardworking. I've always been hardworking, I guess. I didn't think so because I didn't do very well in school and college and my last year in high school. So I had this narrative about myself. I had this other narrative where I was like, no, you know what? I was never good enough. And this light bulb moment, I was like, I wrote this in my phone one day when I was taking some time off and processing all this. And I said, you have never thought you measured up because you didn't play varsity basketball in high school. I was like, what? Where did that was when I was like 16 years old, 17 years old. Where in the world did that freaking come from? Right. And I've just been pulling on these threads, about my childhood, my adolescent years, my young adult years. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've always felt I was a JV, junior varsity guy. And I was like, huh. And I was good at basketball. I was good on my team. And then I was like, man, you've been telling yourself this your whole life. You're a good JV player. You're not ready for the big leagues or varsity or whatever it is, right? And then I was like, oh my God, that is such a half truth because I quit basketball right after my junior season so that I could focus on being involved in church because that's what I felt really mattered in life. So here I am, 20 some odd years later, thinking I'm a loser, I'm a dork, like I've never really measured up. When in reality, I made a conscious decision to follow what was more important to me at the time. And now I was like holding it against myself. Ridiculous, right? And my point is that once you start pulling on these threads and you get curious about like where these thoughts are coming from, this is another thing I learned to learn to sit and welcome those thoughts, not to banish them, not to like try to drown them out with a ton of positive thinking, but to really invite those feelings over. I was reading this book, Radical Acceptance. So I guess I was on this theme, right? Which was given to me, by the way, 4 years ago, and I've like piecemealed my way through it. And one of the concepts is to have those feelings over for tea. Invite them to sit with you as if you're having a cup of tea with your feelings of doubt and regret and putting yourself down and the lack of acceptance towards yourself. Just have these feelings over for tea. And I tried to do this with not just work life that I've been talking about so far, but my business life, my personal life, my personal life. I'm like, wow, interesting. I fundamentally was running on this program that was running in my mind that said, I'm fundamentally flawed. I'm less than. I've never been good enough. I'm late to everything. Incredible, isn't it? Um, Towards the end of 2023, when I was really eyeing this time off, I started diving back into one of my very first online mentors who I hadn't followed in years, Michael Hyatt. Uh, Michael was the first person I followed online in a meaningful way. And back in 2013, hard to believe, 10 years ago, uh, more than 10 years ago, he was writing and blogging a lot back then about building a platform, like a personal brand platform, which is now commonplace today. Right. And so I followed Mike early on, and over the years, he's, morphed his business. He's shifted his focus. What I've always remembered about Michael is that he's just a tremendous leader. Um, he's very kind of like bullet point ish, right? Which I found like after a little while, I just needed a little bit of more variety and stuff. But I've always known him to be very, very productive and like very focused. And um, I was like, man, I remember like I took a course of his called Your Best Year Ever. And it was like one of the best courses that I've ever taken. And then that year I had a really good year. And then what you know, my dumb ass was like, all right, let me not take the course again. It's like, it's incredible what we do, right? Like when we find something that works, we just stop doing it. I don't know why. And so I was like, wait, let me go find that course. I know I still had the login. I couldn't find it. Next thing I know, he's got a book on it. I was like, oh, he's got a book on it. Well, the book came out like 4 or 5 years ago. So I ran it by my mastermind group, and oh yeah, he's putting that book on his a new version of it's coming out. He's putting it on his podcast for free, the audiobook. I was like, oh, spectacular. So I bought the book. I read it on my Kindle, my like 6, 7 year old Kindle. It was great. I was listening to the audiobook while I was traveling here and there. And I did a lot of the goal setting exercises. And you know what? Setting these personal goals, very personal to me. And this process has helped me define what success looks like for me, right? It's not based on other people's standards. It's not based on someone else's achievements. Um, it's just really starting to define, especially at my age now, in my mid 40s, like what is important to me? How do I want to live? How can I do things that would make me look back on my life in 40, 50 years and say, I'm proud of the life I lived, right? Um, so I guess what I'm saying here, and it's a little all over the place, but setting those personal goals have been huge. Turning off the faucet of distractions has been huge, and this journey of self acceptance, right? And a lot of that has come through practicing mindfulness and really trying to cultivate gratitude. One of the habits I've instilled for the last 2 years is to write in something called the 5 minute journal. I know I've absolutely shared about that before here on this channel, and to everybody I know, I've bought so many copies of that thing for people, and some use it and some don't. And I'm like, well, as soon as you start using, you will see a change because you're training yourself. It's a skill to notice what's going on and what's going on well in your life. Like we're not conditioned to recognize it. So I just want to share that with you here. And, people are really big on New Year's resolutions and goals. And I did some goal setting. Totally understand that. But I did some goal setting for myself, right? Not for anyone else, not with anyone else, just myself. I think if you're in a serious relationship, right? You got a partner. Um, that's definitely something worth doing with that person. But still, remember, it's your goals. It's your life. Um, you're the one who will give an account to yourself of it, at the end of your life. And so, it's not a race against others, but just a journey with yourself. And I've come to accept that. I've come to really work towards accepting all parts of my journey. There were times where I said, "Oh my gosh, I regret my life. I wish I started out in business and marketing right out of college or right in college, and think of where I could be today if I had done that, blah, 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 blah. And I wouldn't be who I am today." And I had to really lay hold of that. Um, Finally, and this news came to me a couple weeks ago while I was on break. I mentioned Michael Hyatt earlier, but one of the guys I met through Michael is a gentleman named Dan Miller, author of the book 48 Days to the Work You Love. I've met Dan a couple times throughout the years. He's a wonderful, wonderful man, and he was diagnosed with cancer, and the doctors aren't giving him very much time left. And if you are in those circles online, um, he's he's well enough to kind of read these messages, and he and his family have decided to really celebrate his life while he's still, here, and we can all tell him. And the news hit me like a ton of bricks. Uh, I think I saw Dan just a year or two ago, and we emailed, back and forth and stuff like that. He's very close friends with people that I know. Um, I know several people who have been in his programs and masterminds and all that stuff for his business. Um, One of the things I learned from Dan, and this was a story, like this was like a personal interaction with him. I flew to Nashville a couple years ago for an event, and I went from the airport to Franklin, where the event was, and that's where he was living near at the time. And we went out to lunch. He, myself, and Jody Mayberry, and I lost my wallet. I left it. I think I left it on the plane, or I maybe dropped it at the airport. So first, Dan paid for lunch because I literally had no money, and then I somehow got in touch with the airline, and they're like, "Oh, it's we found your wallet. Like, you can come and get it." Well, the airport's like 30, 40 minutes away, and he was kind enough to drive me. And he said, whenever something happens and it doesn't really go my way, like it's not what I planned, um, I ask myself, what does this make possible? What does this make possible? And I've remembered that tenet. It's become like a core tenet to me in life. And I said, Dan, I guess me losing my wallet on the plane made it possible for me to spend like almost 2 extra hours with you in the car, going back to the airport and coming back. And I really treasure that conversation. There's a lot more that I could say about him, but my point is like he ran his race. He's run his race. He has lived his life, and it's been a great life. And he said so. And I watched this YouTube video just a couple days ago. He seemed totally fine, and he's just giving an update to everybody. And I was like, he looks as healthy as a horse. I can't process this. And he's still adding value to people. He's in his 70s, and I remember like he's just still so hungry for personal growth and development. It was inspiring. I want to be like that. I want to be like that for the rest of my life. I just want to pursue growth, right? And he's so fortunate. He's so blessed. Like his family's rallying around him. He's spending time with them, and he's fortunate in that way. He's created his life a certain way. This video, one thing he said just really gripped me. And he said, "I've had a great life. We have nothing left to do on our bucket list. We did it all." And that really hit me. Like this guy really built and engineered his life. Just a few weeks to getting diagnosed, he was in Las Vegas to attend a concert at the Sphere with U2 with his sons. And shortly thereafter, he found out. He ran his race. He didn't say, "Oh, I didn't do what Elon Musk did or Bill Gates is doing or, you name it, Jeff Bezos or whatever billionaire, millionaire, whoever, athlete, whatever you need." He's like, he just lived his life. He ran his race. And in a world full of comparison, a world full of ads for other people's lives and everything that's going on, I just want to encourage you today, this year, and the rest of your life to run your race. Okay? All right. Hope you enjoyed this little episode. Hopefully it's added value to you in some way. If you enjoyed it, I would love for you to share it with somebody, whether it's here on YouTube or on the podcast channel. That would mean a ton to me. If there's anything you want to let me know, you had some feedback about the episode, hit me up on Instagram. I do check it. I just don't keep it on my phone. So I log on my computer so that I can't get distracted on my phone and all that. I'm at Mike Kim on Instagram. So if you're on that channel, let me know. And let's have a great year. Let's have a great life. We can start by having a great day, by learning to really run our own race and define what that means. Define what that means for you as I define what it means for me. And here to encourage you along the way. All right. Talk soon.